So, hi, hello, Susan. Lovely to have you joining me. I
Hello,
am
Carol.
excited. I know that I mentioned to you that this is the first time that we are going to be talking about this topic. And listeners, I'm going to keep you in suspense just for a moment before I introduce you to our guest today. So, a quick note, I am Carol, your accountability biz coach, helping global women in midlife who are starting what I like to call a lifestyle business. I don't know if it's just something that comes about when you get a little bit older, but I want to help you find simple systems for your marketing, time management, and I help you track that progress. So I like calling it creating a lifestyle business because it's one that's geared, I like to say, more towards sustainable and a pleasant work-life balance rather than maximizing revenue and solely focusing on profit. So that's just a little bit about me. But I want to welcome you to this new episode of Connect, Inspire, Create. And we hope that our conversations will do just that. Encourage you to connect, inspire, create, learn some more about entrepreneurial journeys from others, the wonderful guests that we have on our show, life skills, mindset motivation, and marketing resources. And today, it is all about writing your book. So we are chatting with Susan Baracco. And Susan, I didn't check in with you how to correctly pronounce, I would say surname, but it's last name here.
Yes,
Did I get it right?
You did. Absolutely. Very good.
Wonderful. Well, to our listeners, I would love to introduce Susan to you and tell you just a little bit about her background. So she is a passionate advocate for women and believes that putting your stories into words is a powerful tool for change. So 15 years of business coaching, facilitating executive mastermind groups, love mastermind groups, so powerful, and working side by side with women leaders has given you that unique perspective among professionals in the book writing industry. And as you shared, you have worked with hundreds of women leaders, many already successful, and some on their way to success. And since 2011, so that's been almost a decade,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You've been focusing your energy on being a resource for women who want to tell their stories, share their wisdom through book writing.
Yes.
Susan, before we dig into, and I know that our listeners are going to walk away with some actionable steps and you've got some tools, because we are going to share 6 things that no one tells you about writing a book. But
Absolutely.
before we dig in, I wanted the fun stuff. So I took a peek at your website and I saw you had written fun stuff. I love that. And it went running, ocean kayaking,
Yes.
red wine,
Yes.
foodie, dogs of any kind, and singing loudly at church. And I just read these and I had to smile. It's like, I can connect to all of those, perhaps except the running.
Running.
I'm not the best at that, but I know the benefits. But dogs, tell me more about being a dog lover.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have been a dog lover my whole life. And so over the years, I have rescued a number of pups and had some amazing experiences with that. I currently have 2 rescue pups, and they are pit bull mix. One's an American bulldog and pit bull mix, and the other's a terrier and pit bull mix. And they are just the most amazing pets and amazing animals. Yeah, so and that's my team. If you visit my website, you'll see a picture of me on the couch reading my book and reading a book and them sitting next to me. And that's pretty much them all the time.
Yeah. So. Our new little girl is also a rescue and she's underneath my feet. So listeners, if you hear a little bit of thunder in the background, unfortunately that really unnerves her, but I hope that it doesn't come across. But yep, another dog lover here. But let's dive into overcoming roadblocks to writing your book. And I would just love to hand the mic to you and let you just inspire our audience, because as I mentioned, this is the first time we are talking about book writing. So over to you, Susan.
Well, thank you. And feel free to hop in and ask me to clarify if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about a little bit more. You know what I find, I've been focusing on working with women for several years now. And I think that for me, I find it incredibly satisfying because women have amazing experiences in their lives, and not just work, but all throughout their lives, all different kinds of experiences. And the women that I work with, when I help them write their book, it's kind of unearthing that, digging in and finding out, so what, how did that impact you? What did that experience do for you? And then what have you learned, and what do you want to share with others to help them? And that's, I think, typically the women that I help write books really have that desire to help others through what they write. So it's something that I just want to kind of put out there to the audience, to let people know that oftentimes they think, geez, maybe everything's been written before. I don't have anything new to share, but I believe that you're experienced here on this planet, and your journey through life is so different. You may have similar experiences as others, but I think that your perspective and what you take away from them is what's really unique. So
I have to agree with you. Yeah. I mean, if you just think about it, we should not underplay the value of our stories.
Not at all. Not at all.
There's the right person that's out there that you are going to encourage, and you're going to encourage them to take the next step. So
absolutely.
I have to agree with you on that one.
Definitely. So a couple of things that I would love to share with the audience is one of the questions that I get often is, what kind of book should I write? And that's a tough question, and it's a very personal question. So the types of things to be thinking about when you're thinking about writing a book is, and there's one of my guys right there. Let's see him over my shoulder here.
Oh, there he is. Yeah.
One of my books. So the kinds of things to be thinking about, what I usually ask my prospective clients is, imagine that it's a year from now, you have your book in your hand. Now what? What are we going to do? What is it going to do for you? And what do you want to do with it? Be thinking about, how am I going to use this book? Because people get very excited and kind of almost a romantic notion of, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be so wonderful. But I like to kind of bring people back down to let's be a little practical on the backside, because it's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
There's an investment involved, not only of time and effort, but of dollars as well. So what is the purpose? What's the true purpose behind your book? And what would you like it to do for you personally? So, for example, I might decide, I think I want to become a speaker. I think I've had an experience that I'd like to share, and I love to speak, public speaking. Maybe I want to be out speaking more. Lots of women write books to use as sort of as a door opener, or something to, a piece to be able to give away, or maybe sell in the back of the room. It helps to launch a speaking career. So that's just one example of something that you could do with a book. Some women want to just write their memoir. Maybe they want to just share their experiences and a memoir is very specifically a period of time in your life. So it's not intended to cover your entire life. A memoir is really just a period of time. Maybe you went through, maybe it was the time that you started and ran a business. Maybe it was the time that you started and raised your family. There might be just a period of time, but a memoir typically does not cover your entire life. It's usually just a theme. Maybe there's a theme that you want to cover, or a period of time. Okay. So, and again, that might be something that you want to leave as a legacy to your family. Maybe it's something that you just have a calling to do. You feel like that's important. And from a creativity side, I know that's something that you like to talk about in your podcasts. It's a wonderful opportunity to sit back and really think about your life and kind of put it in perspective. And it can be cathartic in ways.
I think so. And I love the fact of just leaving a legacy, because it's, so sad that so many times we don't spend enough time with our family. We're spread out all over the world. Like me, I'm from South Africa. My sister's in England. My brother-in-law's in Australia. So our family is so spread out. So we don't have that opportunity to sit around the table and talk about things. So that I love that the memoir focus. But I love what you're sharing and breaking it down and going, there could be different focuses. So this could be a business-related type of book.
Absolutely.
Is there another one that you would go to? You've got the memoir, which is very personal.
Yeah.
What about somebody, are you dealing with people who might want to write that fiction book? Does that fall into the realm?
Believe it or not, I have worked with authors. I've helped them to write their fiction novels as well.
Ah,
I actually do some book coaching, and I also do a level of book editing that helps people develop their ideas.
that's
So
perfect.
there's,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and that's the other thing is oftentimes authors will come to me and say, all right, I have an idea. And one of my favorite things to do is to spend some time on a Zoom call like this, just, all right, tell me about your ideas. And then I come up with, oh, well, have you thought about doing it this way? Or have you thought about doing it that way? And it's so much fun to just brainstorm, literally. Let's come
Right.
up with some different ways for you to approach it, and give them food for thought, give them something to like, oh, okay, I'm going to try that. I just spoke with a woman yesterday about this, and she's got a situation that she wants to write about. And I said, what if you approach it like a case study in this particular situation? And she hadn't thought of that. She thought, oh, that's a really interesting idea. And, so you're writing your book to say, here was, life before I got involved in this situation. This is how I got here. And then this is what happened as I went through it. So you're literally telling the story of what happened.
Right. That I love that. I must say that. I know there was something else that you mentioned about, and I looked at it. So besides the fact of planning your book cover to cover was
Yes.
one of the, but understanding how to differentiate your book. You had mentioned understanding the market, competitive
Absolutely.
titles,
Absolutely.
and how to say, because one of the things you said earlier, I guess, which stops people in their tracks is going, well, somebody else has written this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I encourage it. Part of my process is in the discovery phase of before you start writing, and before whether I start writing it for you or you decide to write it yourself. There's what I call the discovery phase, and it's really where we do research. So, and research sounds kind of unfun, but it's more of a let's go exploring and see what's already out there and see how your topic, maybe you have an idea for a topic, go out and see what's already been written and how it's being talked about. So you might find some books that are similar, but no one's quite got the angle that you were going to take, the approach that you were going to take. So it's a really helpful experience to go spend some time looking at. And on Amazon, what's nice is you can see the first chapter. Usually they'll give you that peek inside. So you can do a little bit of reading to get a sense of how is the author approaching the topic that you're thinking about approaching.
And how many times do you get told by somebody that's like, oh, I was looking for this book, I could just on this topic and I could never find it, so it was time to write it. Do you ever get that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it's interesting because there's two ways to look at that. If it's something that hasn't been written about, there may not be a demand for that topic. So that's why the research is so important.
Right.
If there's a lot of books out there already and they're being bought and sold, there's a demand. So, and that's a good thing. So, either way, neither one is a showstopper in my mind. Neither one is like, oh, I'm not going to write my book because there's nobody writing it or everybody's writing it, writing about it. Neither one needs to be a showstopper. It might mean that you just you step back and you say, okay, how can I approach this topic a little differently to make it more appealing to the reader and to really help? And one of the best ways to do that is to think about your audience. Who are you writing this for?
Right.
And one of the biggest myths people will say to me, oh, well, my book is for everyone. Anyone can read it.
And it's just like a business. We don't do what we do for everyone.
Exactly. And so we need to define as an author, you really want to define your audience and be thinking about, I usually suggest that people think about if there's one person that you would want to be able to sit down across the table and explain this topic to, because you care so deeply for them. It might be your younger self. It might be your child. It might be a dear friend. It might be someone that you just care for so deeply and you want them to know what you have in your head and what you've experienced. That would be your audience. So what does that person look like? In our case, we work with women. You work with women who are more in that midlife range. I tend to work with women who are more seasoned in their career, usually, you know, in that more towards the back half, honestly, of their career. So not that we couldn't work with younger people, but just the way that we have ourselves set up, we found our sweet spot in terms of who we help the most. It's the same thing with your book. It's the exact same approach. You're thinking about your book the same way, like who would be the one person that I would write this to? And you want to be thinking about them in particular, and then how do I help them? So what in my book am I going to say that's going to truly, by the time they turn to the last page, they feel like they've been helped. They feel like they've benefited from the time they spent reading it.
And isn't that, you know, just always something that we do? We want to walk away from something. I find that particularly now at this stage of my life, learning, always wanting to learn something new. It's so stimulating. And I think it's so important for our brains to
I think so too.
To keep us on track. That,
and there's, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Susan, earlier on, you showed me the index cards, and I'd love for you to share that visual.
Perfect.
Because, yes,
good
for
timing.
those that are listening, do pop over. The recording and the video will be on YouTube and on LinkedIn, that you'll be able to actually see this, but we'll do our best to describe it. Right, Susan?
Absolutely. 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 So this is actually good timing, because people will then say to me, okay, so I have hundreds of stories or hundreds of ideas in my head. How do I sort through them? How do I get started? Where do I begin? And so my favorite tool that I recommend is kind of old fashioned. It's old-fashioned index cards. And these, I don't know if you can see the multiple colors, but they're 4 different colors. I recommend you can even order them online or go out and buy a couple packs. And the easiest way to think about these cards is, especially if you're not comfortable as a writer, you're not just going to sit down at a blank page and start writing. That's really hard to do. Even people like me who write for a living can't always do that. But this is a great way to help get you organized. So each color, pick a color for a category. And so I usually suggest that you start with what I call the 3 Ps. So it's personal, professional, and passion.
So let me just say that again: personal, professional, and passion.
Right. So I might choose yellow as personal. And so every time I think of a story that happened to me personally, maybe it happened to be as a child or a young person, I'm going to write one story or one idea per card. And then the next category might be professional. So I put that on the green cards. And same thing, every experience, every story, every idea that I have that's related to my professional career, I'm going to put there, and so on. And so passion might be, maybe I'm a passionate advocate for animals, right? I'm an advocate for, for adopting animals and that kind of thing. So my experiences, my ideas, different things, I want to put that in that category. And you make up your own. Those are just to get you started, to help you get started. But the way that the thing that I love about the index cards, you can use sticky notes, different colored, the Post-it notes, and put it up on your wall, which is kind of fun if you've got a free space. The thing that's nice about this is that they're so visual. So once you've spent some time doing this, and I suggest give it a few weeks, because as you start getting the ideas out and onto these cards, more will come in, more things will come to you. And then what I do is I recommend that you lay them out by color, by category, to see where this is a really telling thing, because I might lay these out and find out that, oh my gosh, all my stories are in my personal pile. All of them are personal. So maybe that's where I start looking.
That's what you're going to lean towards, right?
That might be it. Maybe not, but it at least helps you to start getting organized, to say, okay, well, maybe I have a passion, but I don't have enough. It looks like I might not have enough to talk about in my book. I'm going to put that off to the side, maybe for another book or for something else. But you can also mix and match. So that's the other thing, is that my personal stories and my professional stories most likely overlap.
And passion, because people want to know behind you.
Yes. So this takes a little bit of time, but you can have some fun with it. And that's what I like about the cards or the Post-it notes, is because you can put them up and it's so visual And you can really, you'll start to see themes once you start writing this out. It's really great.
I'm curious to ask you the question that I know you
Yes.
mentioned, give yourself some time. And it's like any
Yes.
habit that we start or something that we want to stack on, giving yourself time to explore, learning how to write these ideas down, letting them flow. Do your clients ever ask you, do I need a timeline? Do I need to put an end date to my project and reverse engineer?
That's a wonderful question.
Is that impossible?
I love that question, and thank you for asking that. I just wrote a post that I put out on LinkedIn recently about it shouldn't take you 10 years to write your book. And God bless the people who have been saying to me, I see people over and over and over like, oh yeah, I still want to write my book. And it's, year 5, year 6. Yeah, I'd still like to write a book. It shouldn't, I guess the best thing to say to that is that the longer it stays sitting here on your head, the heavier it gets, right? So because it's just like, it's an undone thing that you want to do, and that weighs on us psychologically. And so there's a real peace and freedom to even if you don't get around to writing your book, but just to get these ideas out in form.
Yeah.
And then, what I love about these, I stick them in my purse, and that way I have them with me and I can look through them and add to them. If I'm sitting at an appointment somewhere and I'm waiting, I'll jot a few things.
Add some more notes to that.
But getting that out of your head is so important because it does weigh on us. And so if it's something you've been thinking about, this is a very non-committal way to get started, just get started and feel like you're making progress and getting organized.
Yeah, because I think that evil procrastination gets in our way when the task is too overwhelming and we haven't broken it down. So I love what you just shared, because those are baby steps, like get you going. Go and buy this index
card. That I can do, right? People are saying, yes, I can do that. That's easy. It is easy.
And the color coding.
And so take your time with it in the sense that give yourself a month, work on it, because you never know. Maybe if you're going on vacation, sometimes it's amazing what comes up when you're relaxing. Maybe you're away from your normal daily grind kind of situation and you're off relaxing somewhere. Then ideas can come. So give yourself at least a month, maybe even more. Give yourself some time, a couple of weeks anyway, because like I said, as the ideas come out and you get them out of your head and onto these little cards, more will fill in and more creativity. It'll open up more room for creativity.
I love that. And I know one of the other comments you had here was tips for making time in your busy schedule to write. So we're not all going, although many of us might be on vacation, especially during the summer months, or taking a break and winding down a little bit. But what tips do you have to help people make time? I mean, especially if they're a career woman, still working, wanting to do the book, maybe they have a family still at home.
I know. So I think that one of the misconceptions about writing a book is that, geez, I've got to have big blocks of time. I've got to be able to sit down for 3 hours and write. Personally, I write for a living and I can't sit for 3 hours and write. So it's just not mentally possible. What I suggest for time is that, because that's one of those things, and it's a great question, I appreciate you asking, is that people do struggle with like, when am I ever going to, writing a whole book? The cards feel more doable and it gets you that toe in the water to start. What you might do is blend the two and say, okay, so you know what? I'm going to spend the first 10 minutes of my morning before I check email. I'm going to spend 10 minutes. I'm going to fill out 2 cards. I'm going to come up with 2, maybe 3, just set, smaller, breaking it down this way. And then over time, if you find that you have the times to expand that to maybe 20 minutes or something. And when you start writing, then you, instead of doing cards, right, you're then going to start, okay, I think I'm ready to actually start writing my book. Don't do it in big chunks. I suggest either breaking it down into a shorter amount of time, like maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, or a number of words. So whatever you're more comfortable with, because sometimes you sit there and you're thinking, oh, I'm having a hard time getting started. 15 minutes goes by and you've hardly written anything. So there's 2 different ways to do it. So the number of words, maybe I want to write 200 words a day. It's very, very small in number. That's manageable. And some days it'll take you 5 minutes, and other days it'll take you 15 or 20, or depending
longer,
on where you are.
And then I have to add in that I always love to encourage people is always celebrate Celebrate when you put these little mini goals, these mini steps that you do, and then we keep still looking at the big project and go, oh, but celebrate if you get to do that. But,
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes. I
that's so
agree.
important. But,
I agree.
Susan, I'd love to share with our audience where they're going to find you. So I wanted to share the website. It's storyarchitectforwoman.com, and this will be in the show notes. So if you are struggling with your book, or you want to explore that book idea, here's your person.
Absolutely.
Reach out and connect with Susan. Go to her website. I know that you've got some free resources that I peeked at. So it's storyarchitectforwoman.com/free resources. Anything you'd like to share about those resources?
There's a really great planning tool, and it's called the Blueprint cheat sheet. So it's a couple of pages, believe it or not. It's a fraction of what I do when I work with my actual clients, when I bring on a new client. But it's a couple of pages of just questions. Who is my book for? What is my book going to do for me? What's the purpose? So it just will help you to start thinking. It's a good little worksheet type of a thing where you can download it, print it out, and you can handwrite in it if you'd like, and just start getting your thoughts organized. It's one of my favorite tools in there in terms of where it helps you to answer that question. Where do I start? How do I get?
Take that first step and move forward. So
absolutely,
do check that out. It's storyarchitectforwoman.com/free resources. And then I know we can connect with you on social. LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn too. So it's Baracco on LinkedIn, and then Instagram, I think. Is that your other favorite place to connect? Susan Baracco on Instagram. Those will be linked in the show notes. As we leave our guests, I'm going to just ask you one last word of advice for our listeners on writing that book. What would you tell them?
You can do it. I think I'm amazed when I see people that come to me and they're so excited. I always ask, make sure you keep me posted as you get through the process of getting it printed and so forth. It's such a sense of accomplishment, and every single author that I work with, they tell me that it changes their life in some way.
I love that, because yes, if that's on your horizon, that's what you've written down as your goal, get started. You can do
absolutely.
it. So...
Don't wait. Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Gosh,
we don't have all the time in the world, so why not? Why not start now?
Absolutely.
So Susan, thank you. This has been wonderful, and I just encourage our listeners. I want to say thank you for listening to our conversation today. We hope that you will share it with your friends, and I am sure that there's somebody out there who needs to know you can do it. So do share this episode on your social media platforms, and we want to leave you with connect, inspire, create. We encourage you to go out and connect with people in your own authentic way. Feel empowered by being you. Inspire others. So many small ways to do that, and it spreads happiness. And create relationships and opportunities that help you build your community. So Susan, again, thank you. I am excited for this episode to launch, and goodbye.